Good morning. Continuation of pituitary gland and its disorders. Today I am going to take a class on disorders of posterior pituitary gland. In that, diabetes insipidus and SIADH, that is syndrome of inappropriate ADH secretion, that is antidiuretic hormone secretion or vasopressin secretion. If there is a hyposecretion or hypoactivity of antidiuretic hormone secretion or vasopressin secretion will result in diabetes insipidus, whereas hypersecretion or hyperactivity of antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin will result in SIADH. So coming to the diabetes insipidus, so diabetes insipidus will be taught under these headings. So definition of diabetes insipidus, epidemiology, etiology, clinical feature, investigation and treatment of diabetes insipidus. So by definition, diabetes insipidus is a syndrome of polyuria resulting from inability to concentrate urine and conserve water as a due to lack of vasopressin or antidiuretic hormone. Diabetes insipidus clinically present as polyuria, polydipsia, nocturia, and dehydration. So, coming to the epidemiological feature of diabetes insipidus, is an uncommon disorder, occurs in 3 every 1 lakh individual. If you take the age of onset, occurs at any age group. If you take the sex, occurs equally in both the sex, both male and as well as female. So occurrence in adults mainly depending upon etiology. What is the cause for that diabetes insipidus? So what are the types of diabetes insipidus? So there are 4 types of diabetes insipidus. One is central diabetes insipidus. Second one is nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. Third one is psychogenic diabetes insipidus, otherwise called primary polydipsia. Fourth one is gestational diabetes insipidus. So come to the central diabetes insipidus. Here is pathology lies in the either in the posterior pituitary gland or in the hypothalamus. Here is there is a defect in the synthesis and secretion of antidiuretic hormone. In nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, pathology lies in the kidney itself. Here, antidiuretic hormone synthesis and secretion is almost normal, but this antidiuretic hormone not act properly because of there is a defect in the distal convoluted tubule of kidney. If you take a psychogenic diabetes insipidus, otherwise called primary polydipsia, say here is pathology will be the damage of thirst resulting mechanism in the hypothalamus. But it is also seen in certain psychiatric disorder like schizophrenia, where the patient will be drink excess of water and pass excess of urine that result in the psychogenic diabetes insipidus. Last one, gestational diabetes insipidus. That name itself suggests diabetes insipidus occur during pregnancy. So here there is a increased metabolic clearance of antidiuretic hormone by the enzyme called vasopressinase that is secreted from placenta that result in the gestational diabetes insipidus. So what are the causes for diabetes insipidus, otherwise called etiology of diabetes insipidus? So if you take the central diabetes insipidus, so there is a hereditary causes and acquired causes. So hereditary causes are autosomal dominant disorders, whereas acquired causes includes tumors that is craniopharyngioma, pituitary adenoma that extend to suprasellar region following trauma or following surgery of pituitary gland. Infiltrative disorders, ischemic or hypoxic disorders, granulomatous diseases, infections like tuberculosis, autoimmune disorders. Last one, idiopathic, that is where etiology is not known. So if you take the nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, here also there is a hereditary causes and acquired causes. So acquired causes includes chronic kidney disease, hypercalcemia, drugs like lithium, democlocycline, acute tubular necrosis, sickle cell trait or sickle cell disease, and amyloidosis. So what are the clinical features of this diabetes insipidus? So three major clinical features are polyuria, polydipsia, and nocturia with sign of severe dehydration. So polyuria is, so there is excessive secretion of large quantity of diluted urine along with increased frequency of voiding. That is more than 3 liter of urine output is called polyuria. In diabetes insipidus, so urine output will be 4 to 12 liters or even may up to 20 liters also. So why this polyuria occurs? Due to the absence of vasopressin hormone or antidiuretic hormone that acts on epithelial cells of distal convoluted tubule in the nephron and collecting duct of kidney, which is become impermeable to water. So polydipsia is excess intake of water because of polyuria. So there is a loss of water content in the body that stimulate the thirst center in the hypothalamus will result in intake of large quantity of water. So dehydration because excess secretion of urine that result in the, so decrease in the water content in the body will result in dehydration. Usually there is a marked dehydration is seen in diabetes insipidus, which is evident by dry mucous membrane, dry skin, and weight loss. In some cases, thirst center in the hypothalamus also affected by this lesion. Therefore, water intake decreases in this patient and loss of water through the urine which is not compensated by the patient that result in the severe dehydration. Other clinical features are anorexia and epigastric fullness. There is an increased frequency of maturation during night time, that is called nocturia. So that also one of the important symptom in diabetes insipidus, which disturbs the sleep. When there is a water content in the body is lost through the urine, so that result in the hypertonia, which leads to the irritability, fever, mental dullness, frustration, and death. So what are the investigation you ask in a suspected case of diabetes insipidus? First, you have to measure the 24 hours fluid intake and urine output. If a urine output is more than 3 liter, you suspect a polyuria. But in diabetes mellitus, even up to 20 liter of urine you can expect. And also you measure the 24 hours fluid intake. Then next measure the plasma or serum osmolarity. So usually it is high, that is above 300 milliosmol per kg of water. So measure the urine osmolarity and urine specific gravity. So urine osmolarity will be low, that is between 50 to 200 milliosmol per kg of water. Specific gravity also low, that is less than 1.005. Measurement of renal function test, that includes urea and creatine. Usually they are elevated because of dehydration. So measurement of serum electrolytes, that is sodium is more than 145 milliequivalents per liter. To confirm the diagnosis and differentiate the different types of diabetes insipidus, you have to do water deprivation test, that is usually positive response you can see by increase in the decrease in the urine output and increase in the specific gravity. How do you do this water deprivation test? So before doing water deprivation test, you have to take certain precautions. So it should be done under supervision. Start in the early time of the day, that is early morning hours. So patient's weight has to measure, that is 97% of basal weight should be calculated and noted promptly for termination. Those who are already taking a replacement therapy of desmopressin, they have to stop 24 hours earlier. Those who are taking steroids for other indication like hypopituitarism, no need to stop. They have to continue the steroids. So first, patient has to restrict the fluid or fluid should be withheld with starting the water deprivation test. So once starting withheld of the fluid or don't give the fluid to the patient and observe till get a one of the signs of dehydration, that is sufficient dehydration occur or not by any one of following three, that is orthostatic hypotension and postural tachycardia has to appear, or more than 5% of initial body weight has to be lost, or urinary concentration doesn't increases specific gravity more than 0.001, or urine osmolality more than 30 milliosmol per liter. Once this has achieved, so you have to stop the fluid withheld. So whatever is not taking fluid, you have to withhold that test. Then you measure the serum osmolality. If serum osmolality or plasma osmolality is more than 288 milliosmol or more than normal, it suggests that there is a sufficient dehydration occur. Then you can give a 5 units or 0.03 microgram per kg of vasopressin, which is injected subcutaneously. After 1 hour of this injection of vasopressin, you measure the urine specific gravity and urine osmolality. To say normal response, so patient has to increase the urine osmolality after the dehydration, which exceeds the plasma osmolality. So urine osmolality will be more than 700 milliosmol per liter and specific gravity is more than 1.020. After vasopressin injection, osmolality doesn't increases more than additional 5% compared to the earlier level of urine osmolality. So only maximum they can increase up to 5%. That is not more than that one. If this picture is there, you think there is a normal response to water deprivation test. This is how we interpret the water deprivation test. In a normal person, urine osmolality will be more than the plasma osmolality after water restriction. After vasopressin injection, it doesn't increases more than 90% of urine osmolality or less than 90% of rise in urine osmolality. In central diabetes insipidus, urine osmolality is less than the plasma osmolality, where rise will be more than the 90%, even up to 100% of urine osmolality will be rise compared to the earlier levels. In a nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, urine osmolality will be less than plasma osmolality, but there is a show a little change in the urine osmolality with water deprivation or fluid restriction, and little increase in the urine osmolality after vasopressin injection. In psychogenic polydipsia or primary polydipsia, where requires a prolonged fluid deprivation before plasma osmolality reaches normal level, After vasopressin injection usually doesn't increases more than 90%. So this is a table showing how to interpret a water deprivation test. So normal after water deprivation there is a urine osmolality will be more than 800 milliosmol per kg. After injection the increases urine osmolality but not more than 9%, that is less than 9% of earlier value. In central diabetes insipidus, after water deprivation urine osmolality will be less than normal, that is less than 300 milliosmol per kg. After desmopressin injection it increases almost 100% compared to the earlier value, that is more than 800 milliosmol per kg. In nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, after water deprivation, is urine osmolality will be low, that is less than normal, that is less than 300 milliosmol per kg. After desmopressin injection, there is a little increase compared to the earlier, that is within less than 500 milliosmol per kg. In a psychogenic diabetes insipidus, otherwise called primary polydipsia, after water deprivation, there is an increase in the urine osmolality, that is more than 500 milliosmol per kg. But after desmopressin injection doesn't increases more than 9%, that is less than 9%, that is more than 500 milliosmol per kg. So what is the treatment of this diabetes insipidus? So objective of therapy is to replace the antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin. So this usually requires a long-term therapy. Second one is to ensure the adequate fluid displacement. Third one is identify and correct the underlying causes. So if you take the treatment of central diabetes insipidus, you have to replace the hormone. Whatever the hormone is not secreted or decreased secretion, in that situation you have to replace the vasopressin either through intranasal or through intravenous or orally with DDAVP, that is desmopressin acetate, which is a long acting vasopressin analog which is act selectively at vasopressin 2 receptors. So once you give DDAVP, that is desmopressin acetate, increase in the urine concentration and decrease the urine flow. Then you have to correct the dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. You can start intranasal administration, that is nasal spray at a dose of 5 to 10 microgram at bedtime, mainly to control the nocturia, because the increased frequency of maturation will be there in the diabetes insipidus. To control this, you can use a nasal spray that is available in at the rate of at the dose of 5 to 10 microgram. So oral preparations also available. You can start 1 tablet of desmopressin acetate, it is at the dose of 100 microgram 8th hourly. In unconscious patient, like in post-operative period or following head injury, so you can give a intravenous preparation at the dose of 1 to 2 microgram QD or BID. So if you take the onset of this desmopressin acetate, usually is a rapid after IV injection, almost 15 minutes of after IV injection, they start action. Like that in orally, usually after 60 minutes of oral intake of desmopressin acetate. If you take the antidiuretic dose equivalence ratio for intranasal to the oral desmopressin is 1:18. So that requires oral dose of desmopressin will be more compared to the intranasal dose. So if you take the treatment of nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, usually treated with thiazide diuretics, that is hydrochlorothiazide. Dose is 25 to 50 milligram per day, along with so restrict the salt intake, that is low salt intake. How this thiazide diuretics acts? Mainly it impairs the sodium chloride co-transporter in the renal distal convoluted tubule, increases the renal sodium excretion that causes a antidiuretic effect. So other treatment are indomethacin or high dose of vasopressin may be used in treatment of nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. So coming to the syndrome of inappropriate antidiuretic hormone secretion, otherwise called SIADH. So by definition, SIADH is a disorder of impaired water excretion caused by the inability to suppress the secretion or due to excessive secretion and action of antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin. If your water intake exceeds the reduced urine output, ensuring the water retention, that leads to the development of hyponatremia. So SIDH is the most common cause of hypoosmolar euvolemic hyponatremia, that is hypotonic hyponatremia. So before going to take a SIDH in proper, should know what are the types of hypotonic hyponatremia. So there is a decrease in the plasma osmolality and as well as decrease in the sodium in the plasma. So we'll have a three types of hyponatremia. One is hypervolemic hyponatremia, hypovolemic hyponatremia, euvolemic hyponatremia. In hypovolemic hyponatremia, there is an increase in total body water that exceeds the increase in total body sodium. In hypovolemic hyponatremia, decrease in the body sodium which is greater than the decrease in body water. In euvolemic hyponatremia, there is an increase in the body water, but there is a little or no change in the body sodium. Means only there is a body water will increase, sodium level is almost normal. See that as you seen in SIADH. If you take the causes of uh, hypotonic hyponatremia, in hypervolemic form, usually seen in fluid overload state like severe congestive heart failure and cirrhosis of liver. Hypovolemic hyponatremia forms usually seen in water loss condition, that is in severe diarrhea, diuretic abuse or mineralocorticoid deficiencies. Euvolemic hyponatremia is mainly due to the expansion of total body water caused by excessive intake in face of defect in the urinary dilution. So what are the cause of this SIADH, that is syndrome of inappropriate ADH secretion? So neoplasms, that is various neoplasm includes carcinoma of lung, duodenum, pancreas, ovary, bladder, ureter, thymoma, mesothelioma, bronchial adenoma, carcinoid, gangliocytoma, Ewing sarcoma. Following head injury, that is closed or perforating injuries. See infections, this is the most common cause of SIDH, that is pneumonia, either bacterial or viral, abscess either in the lungs or brain, cavitation usually fungal aspergillosis, tuberculosis either in the lungs or brain, meningitis either bacterial or viral, encephalitis and HIV infection. So vascular causes include cerebrovascular occlusion, hemorrhage, cavernous sinus thrombosis. So genetic causes includes X-linked recessive disorders. Drugs also causes SIDH that includes vasopressin or desmopressin, high dose of oxytocin, vincristine, carbamazepine, nicotine, phenothiazines, cyclophosphamide, tricyclic antidepressant, monoamine oxidase inhibitors, serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So congenital malformations include agencies of corpus callosum, cleft lip or cleft palate, other midline defects. Certain neurological causes also cause SIDH, that is GB syndrome, multiple sclerosis, delirium tremens, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, hydrocephalus, psychosis, and peripheral neuropathy. So, what are the clinical feature of this SIDH or hyponatremias of any hypotonic hyponatremia? If hyponatremia develops gradually or presented more than few days, majority cases will be the asymptomatic presentation. But if we develop a acutely sudden development of hyponatremia, patient usually presented as a loss of appetite, weight loss, nausea and vomiting, headache, dizziness, muscle weakness, spasms and cramps, fatigue and restless and irritability. So they present as an acute confusional state. In severe cases, patient will have a seizure or convulsion followed by coma and even die. So other clinical features of hypotonic hyponatremias, hypovolemic forms, they will be fluid overload stated. They presented as an increased weight gain, generalized swelling of the body, that is anasarca like generalized edema, ascites, and other signs of marked volume expansion. That is, in a severe cases, patient will have present a breathlessness or dyspnea. In hypovolemic forms, so usually features of symptoms of hypovolemia usually seen. That is dehydration signs and symptoms usually seen. That is fatigue, weakness, thirst, postural dizziness, confusions. On examination, there is a loss of skin turgor and dry mucous membrane of oral cavity. In euvolemic hyponatremia, overt signs of volume expansion or contraction usually absent. That is especially in SIH or SH where there is no volume expansion or contraction will not be seen. Come to the investigation of SIH or any hyponatremia, you have to measure the electrolytes, that is serum sodium will be less than 135 millimoles per liter, potassium will be normal, serum or plasma osmolality will be low, that is less than 270 milliosmol per kg, urine sodium will be more than 25 milliequivalents per day, urine osmolality will be more, that is more than 100 to 900 milliosmol per kg, blood urea nitrogen and serum creatinine will be low or normal, blood glucose level will be normal, uric acid levels low or normal, serum cortisol, thyroid stimulating will be normal or increase or decrease also. So these SIDs will be almost mimic like a hypothyroidism or secondary adrenal insufficiency. That's why you have to measure the serum cortisol level and thyroid stimulating hormones. Come to the treatment of SIDs, otherwise hyponatremia. So management of hyponatremia depending upon the duration of onset of symptoms. Either the symptoms of acute onset or maybe insidious onset of symptoms or chronic symptoms. severity of the symptom, whether symptoms are mild symptoms or severe symptom, and also type of the hyponatremia, whether it's hypervolemic or hypovolemic or euvolemic hyponatremia. So in acute symptomatic SADH, so aim should be raise the plasma osmolality or plasma sodium at the rate of approximately 1% an hour until reaches the plasma osmolality to 270 milliosmol per liter, and sodium will be 130 milliequivalents per liters. So this can be achieved by either two ways. One is IV infusion of 3% hypertonic saline at the rate of 15 ml per hour, or drugs that acts on AVP2 receptor, that is AVP2 receptor antagonist Vaptans, mainly block the antidiuretic effect of vasopressin and increases the urine output. So next you have to restrict the fluid less than the urine output. That is the important treatment in SADH. So you have to measure the serum sodium level at least once in every 2 hours to ensure that it is not raised too fast or too far. So if you rise suddenly increase in the plasma sodium level, or rapid correction of this hyponatremia will result in osmotic demyelination syndrome. Previously it is called as central fontaine myelosis, which is characterized by flaccid paralysis, dysarthria and dysphagia. So what happens this in osmotic demyelination syndrome is a rapid cellular dehydration, so that occurs in the pons. So earlier they thought only in the pons, but now they identify in other area of the brain. That's why it's called osmotic demyelination syndrome instead of central fontaine myelinosis. In a chronic or minimally symptomatic SIDH patients, so hyponatremia should be correct gradually. So you should not correct fast. So this can be achieved by restriction of total fluid intake. So less than sum of urinary and insensible loss. So insensible water loss, usually water that derived from the food. So approximately that basal insensible loss in adults is equal to 300 to 700 ml per day. That is total insensible loss in the adults. Usually that is derived in the food itself and water. So aim should be reduced to total discriminatory intake of all liquids approximately 500 ml less than the urinary output. So best approach to treat the chronic SIDS will be the drugs that is acts on selectively vasopressin receptor, that is oral Vaptan, so that talvaptan. So it acts on V22 receptor, block the V22 receptor, that increases the urinary water excretion. So other treatment will be the democrocycline 150 to 300 milligram orally TID or QID, fludrocortisone 0.05 to 0.2 milligram orally BID, and most important thing, you have to treat the underlying causes of SIDH. In hypervolemic hyponatremia, fluid restriction is appropriate. Infusion of hypertonic saline is contraindicated, has no role. Use of Vaptans, tolvaptan, especially in hypervolemic hyponatremia of severe congestive cardiac failure, can use Vaptans. In hypovolemic hyponatremia, so usually defect in AUP secretion and water balance, which is corrected easily and quickly to stop either by stopping a loss of sodium and water. So you have to control the diarrhea or you have to stop the diuretic use. So you can stopping the loss of sodium and water and replace the deficient whatever the loss by orally or IV infusion with help of normal or hypertonic saline. So there is no role of fluid restriction and administration of AUP antagonist in hypovolemic hyponatremia. See, this is the table showing a treatment summary of hyponatremia. In hypervolemic hyponatremia, we can use fluid restriction and use of Vaptans. There is no role of 3% hypertonic saline and fluid therapy. In hypovolemic hyponatremia, use 3% hypertonic saline or fluid therapy, but there is no role of fluid restriction and use of Vaptan. In euvolemic hyponatremia, that is SIADH, where fluid therapy, use of Vaptan and 3% hypertonic saline is indicated, where fluid therapy is contraindicated. So these are the questions you have to answer and mailed within 3 days. Thank you.